Good morning, part 5. The next generation and the ones that follow may not want to go to war, may not want to even fight in the military. Europe has that problem right now. They couldn't even man enough troops to take on Putin recently. Why are they so quiet? Because they don't have standing armies that are worth a damn. Do we have a standing army that's worth a damn? It perpetuates itself. Intellectual and emotional bankruptcy perpetuates itself. When you fail to teach your kids principles, virtues, belief in liberty, belief in freedom. Freedom without government, how can you expect them to want to fight for a country? I think the framers could have made the naming of this country a little bit different. United States for America instead of the United States of America. There's a lot of things we buy into that just aren't true. Remember the statement of separation of church and state? That wasn't true. It wasn't in the Constitution. It's actually meant to be the separation of church from state, meaning a hierarchy. Our faith comes first. The government cannot impede our expression and assembly in faith, in belief, in God. Our rights come from Him, not from government. Government has no rights. The Constitution is a negative document. Think about that for a second. Understand, the United States Constitution is a negative document. It's filled with things you can't do to its citizens. It's all it is. Government has zero rights. They have obligations. The theme of this video is obligation. The government has an obligation to its citizens to make sure they can express and exercise their rights. A complete impartiality on who is to be prosecuted and who is to be found guilty. It's getting to a point where people are just not trusting the system anymore. So why not trust the public school system run by county school boards in every state, in all 50 states, with 50% tax rates? What makes my plea so different than all the others? Well, the truth is that we in America, in all 50 states, we're all asking the same question. I did before I fired the trigger letter in 2013. It's the only thing that had not been done. In most cases, there's one case in Hawaii, and there's a case here in Florida before 2013. That wasn't by vote. That wasn't using the Florida Parent Empowerment Law 1233, Clause 3B. It was mandated by the actual school board because of monies disappearing in the public school budget by a previous superintendent who was found to be corrupt. Therefore, it was a school board in a small county, agricultural county in the center of the state, that handed over their schools to a charter. Parents getting together in each neighborhood to form the charter board, found surpluses in every one of his budgets after running these schools, mandated by the school board. Soon after, maybe 2 or 3 years later, they came after him. Politics completely succumbed him, and they pushed him out of the system. I know the feeling. I know what it's like to be attacked. I know how petty it can get with parents fighting among themselves. I get that part. But wouldn't you want that argument to be occurring at your neighborhood parent guardianship school as opposed to you screaming and yelling at school boards? Many people who pay their taxes don't have children in the high school, middle school, and elementary school systems, yet 50% of their tax levy goes to public schools. What's fair about that? Therefore, this idea of reinventing the public school system is the only way to go. It's not reform, and it's not charter. It's not school vouchers. And it's not homeschooling. It's taking over the administration budgets of a particular school funded directly by the Department of Education of your state by passing Florida's Parent Empowerment Law as amended, as suggested on my website. As the studies of vouchers shows, check this out. The statement I made is true. That the majority of people who apply for vouchers already have their children going to private school. We're going broke, folks, as a nation. And as the world realizes that we are going broke, how long before we're no longer trading in the US dollar, the petrodollar as they call it, where our enemies will band together and form their own trading currency? It's happening as we speak. I can delve into that subject matter, but that would not be appropriate for school. Concentrate on the minds of the American. Concentrate on our future as Americans. Are our kids willing to be obedient and to make sacrifices for their own well-being and the well-being of the nation? Can we even sustain a volunteer army? I made these claims earlier. ParentGuardianshipSchool.com. And instead of conversion to charter, it should be conversion to Parent Guardianship School. And I would like the actual bill to say, Governing School Act. What's going to come of this country if states don't take responsibility and onus for how it teaches its children? Nothing in the U.S. Constitution says anything about public school. It's obviously a states' rights issue. If the founders and the framers thought that the United States government should teach its children, it would have mandated so in the Constitution. Because it didn't, you have to assume it's a responsibility of each state. So it goes without saying that it has failed. At federal level, the Department of Education has failed. Mandates on curriculum by presidents, each passing president, has failed. All those mandates, all they did was leverage federal funding for the expansion of the state's public school system by leveraging the federal dollars with curriculums, would obviously change with each passing president. So when you think about that reality, shouldn't we reinvent the whole system? Should the government really educate our children? You can see how the law of the land has become so cumbersome at both the federal level and the state level that we can't teach our children cohesively. We can't teach them to be deliberate people. Instead, we have them obsessed with equality, equality of virtue, equality of gender, and equality of misperceptions. Think about that one for a moment. Quality of no perspectives, misconceptions. When there is no right, you can't even identify the wrong. So why reinvent the public school system? Who says that that's right? Well, we know the alternative was wrong. And as such, we're being taxed, and overtaxed. 50% of your real estate taxes, as I said in the previous videos, are going to the public school system. In the very big counties, like Miami-Dade where I live, The vast majority of those taxes go to the state level, and only an apportionment returns back to run Miami-Dade County's public schools. If we make it easy for parents to take over the budgets of these schools in neighborhoods that can, because there are functional families that are self-reliant, and I don't think that has anything to do with social class. Ultimately, I can't say that in my generation, but ultimately, there'll come a time where huge counties can no longer demand that they need so much money in public school bonds to add to the 50% that is already taken from their citizens. Now, mind you, the court's already decided that renters and landowners both pay taxes. Therefore, the majority renter population can vote for school bonds and approve them. They're not really paying the bill. The real estate owner is paying their bill. But the court's decided that since they rent, parts of those monies go to pay school bonds, not accounting for you have the right to this, you have the right to this, you have the right to that. The truth is you don't have rights. You have obligations. And much of that is around defending those rights. No one's going to give them to you automatically. In fact, aren't most of the most important decisions, if not all, of the important decisions in your life happened in your absence? I know a lot of people like to debate me on that. It's not the first time I said this. But when you got your best job, your best promotion, your best opportunity, were you really present when that decision was made? Yeah, you might think it was a job interview. But after you went home, didn't the owner of the business, the one who interviewed you, report to someone or make the decision himself or herself? Chances are you were not there. And even so, was that the most important decision in your life? Or was it the opportunity you got afterwards? Or the opportunity that allowed you to have that interview? Were you present for those decisions? You might have been proactive in those decisions, but were you really present in those decisions? Did the most important thing happen in your life happened in your presence? I think not. And if you really want to debate me on this, think about the most important decision in your life. What really was the most important decision in your life? You guessed it, your conception. Your parents' desire to have you. You were not present. That's my point. So when you think about school, think about the unequal reality of how you got there. Your beginnings, your relationships, your past, your family's past. Some people just are more fortunate than others. Some people are born really poor, really disadvantaged, without parents. Some with only one parent. Now imagine whole neighborhoods where there's a problem with the family. There's dysfunction out there that I don't need to go into. But the fact is, you can be born poor, but if you die poor, that's your fault. So I can't expect all neighborhoods to be able to take over their schools' budgets. But I do expect that the law be amended so that people can, if they wish to. And if they fail as parents, once they've taken over the budgets and years go by and nothing gets done and you're that pathetic and incompetent, well, guess what? Governing schools that fail, just like charter schools that fail, go back to district-run schools. Or they close down entirely. In the case of charter, there are some charter schools that close down entirely. It goes back to the economic demands of charter schools when they have to pay rent to a developer to build them a fresh new building and then recruit students to attend the charter school. That gobbles up a lot of the operating capital. I already pointed out to Rolette Elementary, a school that was supported by the teachers on the present law, since it has not been amended, 1002-33, Clause 3B. And in such, parents don't really have a majority on the board of directors of Rolette Elementary or Rolette Middle. It's overcome financial woes. It's been in the negative, as their audit report has shown. And they're still there. But those discussions are having among the community, not at the state level, not at the school board level. There's a big difference, very big difference. What's the alternative? We keep on getting taxed to the point where it's 65% in the big cities going to public school. We're already on record as the highest contributing nation to public schooling, and we're not getting the results. In the end, poorly educated people become poorly educated voters. I think that can be proven. There's a lot of people who just don't expect to be prosperous. They spend their whole life thinking that there's a fix in the system, that there's some entity out there keeping them poor. Well, that entity is hope and belief and God. When you have faith in something greater than yourself, you tend to do things that are greater than yourself. Sometimes you have to act so that other things can happen. And you don't really know what really went well for you. You just know that you acted positively in a deliberate manner with a lot of creativity. And if you're not a creative person, you associate yourself with creative people. That's why parent guardianship school is the most creative decision for us to encounter right now. As I did the easy stuff because I made it look so, it was actually really difficult. I had an obligation to do so because I ought to do so. I had the wherewithal, I had the political scenario, and I had the money. I had the commitment to my community, as I always have. And I was willing to subject others that I loved to tremendous scrutiny and unpleasant realities. My 5-year-old daughter. She's the real hero in my firing the trigger letter in 2013 here in Key Biscayne K-8 Center. Today, that school is suffering tremendous consequences for not only asking me to resign, but not rebuilding the school as I suggested. It was part of a scheme to get Mast Academy and Virginia Key built. Kind of leveraged building a high school in Key Biscayne in exchange for building it on Virginia Key, the next Channel Island over, closer to Miami from Key Biscayne. It's on the same causeway. Today, Mast Academy is a 6 through 12 high school that is not meeting standards. And I was opposed to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade included in that school. It used to be a 9 through 12 Mast Academy for the mainland. But we made the mistake, they made the mistake of not adhering to my demands and my pleas. Especially after I had fired the trigger letter at the K-8 Center on the island of Key Biscayne, which already had a kindergarten to middle school. In renovating the school, over 17 teachers have been diagnosed with breast cancer. It's my understanding 4 staff members have passed. There's nothing I can do about that because I can't prove that breast cancer and lung cancer that is consistent with asbestos are associated. And I'm not an oncologist. Reinvent the public school system. Reduce taxes on all property owners. Take back your budgets. Once you have your budget, you can take back the school, you can recreate the curriculum and buy new textbooks that talks about the greatness of America. If not, we will continue as we are, a whole generation not realizing that they have incredible rights to not necessarily do what they want, but do what they ought.